Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Geo Track at Google I/O 2011. I trust you all enjoyed this morning's keynote. We have a great lineup of content for you over the next 2 days. We hope you'll stick with us. And I'm going to kick it off today by talking about connecting people and places. My name is Thor Mitchell. I'm the product manager for the Google Maps APIs based in Sydney, Australia. So, what I'm going to talk about this morning is firstly, a little bit about what we mean when we talk about places and why they're important. A little about how Google connects people with places, and then move on to focusing on how you can do the same in your applications. So we start at the beginning. This is Google Maps circa 2005. Back then, there was no Street View, there was no Maps, My Maps, there was no Western Europe, for that matter. So it's a nice, simple world back then. If you look at the very top, just in the search box there, you'll see that there are only 3 options. You've got Maps, Local Search, and Directions. Now, what's interesting about this compared to what we're used to now is that Maps allowed you to search for addresses, for geographical entities. Local Search was business listings and points of interest. And you had to make that decision. You had to choose for yourself. What am I looking for here? What type of thing do I want to find? Now, the thing about that is it doesn't really map to the way we just think about the world around us on a day-to-day basis. If I were to say to you, or if someone were to ask you right now, where are you? There are all manner of different reasonable answers you could give. And the answer you chose would probably be based on who was asking. So, if it was someone you knew was already at I/O, you would probably just say, oh, I'm in room 8. If it was someone you knew was in San Francisco, then Moscone Center. If it was someone you knew was abroad, then in San Francisco would suffice. And all of these are places in their own way. And all of them are reasonable answers to this question. The one thing you're unlikely to say is the answer your phone would give you if asked this question. Or at least I would hope you're unlikely to say that, because I wouldn't be none the wiser if you did. So what we need to do if we want to bring location-based applications to mobile devices like these that relate to users in the way they relate to the world, we need to bridge this divide between this sort of fuzzy notion of a place and this sort of more geometric model that mobile devices use. Of course, we're sort of fast and loose with what we consider to be a place. It can be one of many things. It can be an address, it can be a city, it can be a landmark, it can be a natural feature, it can be a point of interest, it can be a business. It just goes on and on and on. And you have to kind of accommodate all that if you want to make people feel at home with these applications. So we recognized this at Google some time ago, and back in September 2009, we launched Place Pages. So now every place had a page where we could aggregate all the information that we could find about it, including information that we'd sourced from business owners, information that we'd sourced from data providers, information that we'd crawled from sites online. The next logical step to this was actually to offer places as a first-class citizen within web search. So now you can search for places directly from web search, and this was something that was launched last year. And this is a reflection of the gradual evolution of places as a concept within Google's products to being a first-class citizen, to being an independent entity, coming out from under the wings, if you like, of Google Maps. And that reached its logical conclusion with the launch of the Google Places mobile app. Now you can just start from places. And places and maps are now peers of each other. You can move interchangeably between them. Of course, in the developer team, we realized that places were important there too. We've built a popular Maps developer platform. We didn't really have a strong Places story. So at Google I/O last year, we introduced the Google Places API. And the goal of the Google Places API was really to try and catalyze the development of an ecosystem around, a developer ecosystem around places in much the same way that we had done for Maps. However, we didn't rush into it. We took it easy. And we started just by talking to developers to get a better understanding of what they needed. We launched a developer preview back in July, and we spoke to many, many developers about what their requirements were, about what the what the challenges are in building location-based apps, and what we needed to do to meet their needs. Now, it was a hugely valuable exercise. We learned an enormous amount in the process. And we were also very pleasantly surprised by the overwhelming response from developers. The downside to this was that there are many developers who we just couldn't accommodate in the preview. So if you were in that bucket, I apologize. But if you did participate, we're really grateful for all the great feedback you provided. And for the last 6 months or so, the team has been working hard to try and take all that feedback, factor it into the product, and deliver something that will suit the needs of as many developers as possible. And really, it's the result of that effort that I want to present to you today. So, first things first. No more waiting. As of the end of today, the Google Places API will be available to every developer. And if you were with us last year, you'll notice a lot of things have improved, a lot of things have changed, and I'm going to go over some of that with you right now. But if you're not familiar with the Places API, let's just start with the basics. What is the Google Places API? Well, at its heart, it's extremely simple. You give us a location, you give us an area around that location, a radius around that location to search in, we will give you back up to 20 places that match. And these can be addresses, they could be points of interest, they can be businesses. So, to give you an idea for why this is valuable, and to illustrate the value of some of the other features we're launching, I'm going to use an example. Now, I totally made this example up for the purposes of this presentation. However, I don't doubt that there are applications out there that are similar to this. So, if your application is a bit like this, I'm sorry, consider it flattery. So let's suppose I like sport. I love sport. Not actually participating in sport, that's too hard, no. I like watching sport. And I prefer to watch sport with friends in a bar. I'd just like to point out, Comic Sans, always the answer. Right. So sports good, friends good, bar good. What I'm really looking for here is to find that awesomeness that is the combination of all three. I'm looking for an app that will help me find places that are showing games, help me meet friends there, generally find me that awesomeness. And so consequently, we'll call this the Awesome Finder. Now, there's something not right about this. It's like a Web 2.0 application. That's better. OK. So, as any good product manager will tell you, you start out with a product requirements document. And what do we need? Well, we need to find bars nearby that are showing games I want to see. We need a way of sharing my plans with my friends. And I want help choosing, if I've got many options, which bar will be the best one for a given game. Oh, yeah, and then maybe I have to make some money as well. So, what do I need to do this? Well, I need the name and location of bars. OK, no problem. Google Places API at your service. Sorted. I'm also going to need the dates and times of games, and I'm going to need to match up those games with the bars that are showing them. Now, I could go out there and try and source this from TV companies or from business owners, but I'm just going to take the easy option. I'm going to crowdsource it. So this is a photo I took just at the weekend of a bar literally opposite the hotel I'm staying at for Google I/O. So this happens all the time everywhere. Bars advertise what games they're showing. I'm not sure if you can see that. There's a list of games at the top. And at the bottom, it says, Neighborhood Appreciation Day, $1 off draft drinks. So you can get all your friends together, you can get drunk, and there goes the neighborhood. So we want to crowdsource the collection of these information about these sort of listings and what bars are showing what. So how do you do that? Well, let's say I'm walking down the street and I see that sign. I should be able to go, hey, I'm a great lover of this app. I'm going to contribute. I'm going to correlate these games with this place. So the first thing I need to do is identify the bar I'm at. And that's where we come to the check-in. Now, check-in has kind of become this very common notion over the last year or so. But it's really a very simple concept. It's just a way of telling an app the place you're currently located at, in order for it to then offer you, opportunities around that, sharing it with your friends, perhaps loyalty offers, various other things. But at its core, the check-in is very simple. And you'll hear people talk about, check-in is over and so forth. Well, check-in is just a feature. Saying that the check-in is over is saying like the login is over. Right? So, colors are probably not helping us a great deal here. But what we have here is a map, very nearby actually. And then in the middle here, we have our location, and then there's a circle around it that is the ambiguity, if you like, in my location signal, the margin of error that I'm getting from my location-based device. So what my phone is saying is that I am somewhere within this circle, which you can barely see, but it is there. So what we need to do to initiate the process of a check-in is perform a Places API search for this point with this radius, because essentially, whatever I need to check into should be in that area. In fact, just as a tip, I would say if you're building such an application, pad a little. Because one of the things you might notice is that this circle sort of dissects del Taco just here. But the actual point feature for del Taco is actually outside the circle. So yeah, add a little bit of a margin there. So what would the flow look like for this application? Well, I would get a list of places. I'd choose one, I'd check in, and then I would be able to fill in the games that are being shown at that place. Now, the more eagle-eyed of you will notice that this looks like a real application, and this looks like a real application, and this looks something like I knocked up in a text editor. And you're not wrong. In fact, what I've got here, and what you'll see in a number of screenshots over the course of the next few slides, is a reference client that we've built for the Places API. We've built one for both Android and iPhone. That just shows you the core features and gives you somewhere to start. And we'll be publishing the source code for those as a code sample in the not too distant future. Okay. However, if you look at the list of places on this screenshot in detail, there are some of them which are clearly not going to be showing sport. For example, Britex fabrics. Clearly, when you're looking at the Google Places application, the one that I mentioned earlier that you have on your phone, we have no sense of what your intent is in looking for places. But in this particular application, we know exactly what kind of things you're looking for. We know you're going to be looking for bars, so why show anything else? Well, we can help you there, because the Places API now has a catalog of over 100 different types. And you can choose one or more of these types and say, I just want to receive places of that type. Now, I'm going to show you the impact of this. This is a search nearby with no type filtering at all. And you can see plenty of places, no bars as it happens. Switch to bars, just bars. So it's not that type filtering actually just removes non-bars. It actually gives you more space in your results for more bars and greatly increases the chances that the place you need is going to be in there. OK. So sometimes, though, even that won't cut it. If you happen to be somewhere where there are just a lot of bars, like Austin, for example, you may still find that it's not the place you need is not in that set of 20 results. So you're going to have to search. But searching on mobile phones is a pain, especially if you're going from bar to bar when you're doing it. So we want to try and make that easy for you. So today we're introducing a new feature of the Places API, which we call Autocomplete. Autocomplete is based on the same technology that drives the feature on the Google Maps search field, which offers predictions as to the places you're looking for as you type. You can now integrate that same technology into your mobile applications. You can choose to say, I just want you to offer me addresses, I just want you to offer me businesses, or both. And you can also give a hint as to the location of the user in order to bias the results. So let's see how well this works. This is exactly where we were a minute ago. We were somewhere, back. We were somewhere not far from here, about here somewhere. And this is a list of bars. But let's say I want to check into Gillian's. Gillian's is a bar just opposite the Moscone Center, if you're not familiar with it. It's right over the road. And it's conspicuous by its absence from these results. So what I did is I took the Places API autocomplete service. I gave it this location, this same location, based on this map. And I started typing. Let's see how far I need to type. One, two. Problem solved. So, if you still can't find the place you need after you've done that, the chances are we don't have it. And that does happen sometimes, because places data is continuously changing. About 20% of places we see in our index change every year. And keeping up with changes in businesses opening, closes, moving, renaming, is one of the biggest challenges of managing this kind of a service. But your users are out there, out and about every day, and they will see new places very quickly, and they will want to check into them. In fact, particularly when it comes to things like bars, there's a certain cachet in knowing about the hot new bars and being one of the first people to go there. So people will start wanting to check into places really quickly. Now, it's already possible for a user to submit new places to Google through Google Maps. They go into a moderation pipeline. We check they're OK. And assuming they are, then they'll get published and everybody will benefit. And that's great. The problem with check-in apps is people want instant gratification. They want to be able to check into a place as soon as they've added it. And if they are unable to do that, it's more likely that they will generate more places. And they will build this virtuous cycle of adding places and checking into places. So we need to be able to support that too. So for that reason, we have a report service. And this allows you to add new places immediately. So you can submit a new place to us, and that new place will be reflected in subsequent searches made by your application instantaneously. Now, at the same time, we will take that place, we will moderate it, and assuming it moderates well, it will become available to all applications using the Places API. So you don't have to worry about other apps spamming your app with places that you don't want or that aren't good. But at the same time, all those apps that are generating good data, good content, you will benefit from that use as well. We also have a delete service, obviously, so that you can crowdsource, if you like, your maintenance of these places. You can allow your users to indicate whether newly added places are good or bad, and you can choose to delete the ones that it seems your users don't agree with. So here's just a quick visual overview of how this works. Every Places API application has its own little private set of places that have been added by its users. They get blended in with your search results that come from Google Places. And then all those changes also get passed into moderation and then ultimately end up in Google Places, where they'll appear not just in the Places API, but also on Google Maps, across all the other properties that Google has that exposes places. OK. So we're in good shape. We can implement the check-in. We can collect that information about the bars that we need from users and the games they're showing. We can find bars if they're not showing up in our initial search. We can add bars if they're missing. So now we can move on to the next step, which is, OK, I'm out and about. I want to decide where to go. So just showing you what games are around is relatively straightforward. You have a list of all the places that people have checked into and associating upcoming games with, so you can show those on a map. You can also encourage people to check into bars when they arrive to watch a game, not just in order to add new information or new games to that bar. So you can share that with friends. You can see where your friends are watching games. You can plan ahead. But it would be good to know, if I've got a few choices, where should I go? What would be the most fun? So what makes a bar fun when it comes to watching a big game? And to a large extent, it's simply the number of people there. Right? You want atmosphere. You want lots of like-minded people enjoying the game. So as a general rule, for the most part, the fun of a bar during a game is a function of the number of people watching it. It increases until it gets to a critical point where the bar is so full that you can't actually reach the bar. And then it begins to kind of fall off until you get to the point where you can't actually reach the bathroom, and then it's no fun at all. But so as long as we can keep on the left-hand side here, we'll be in good shape. For the most part, in most cases, I think popularity of the bar will be a good indicator of how much fun it is to be there during that game. So how do you assess that? Well, you have the check-ins, and the check-ins are a reflection of the popularity of that bar. It's a signal as to how many people are there. And check-ins, generally speaking, are a great proxy for that, both over short periods of time and longer ones. So on the left here, we have a couple of mocks of the kind of check-in activity you might expect to see over the course of a day at two different venues. At a coffee shop, you would see a morning spike as everybody gets their hit, and then another spike at lunchtime that's a little lower, and then it would sort of tail off towards the end of the day. At the ballpark, you'd expect to see nothing for days on end, and then suddenly there'll be a massive rush of check-ins when the game starts, and then it'll die away. So similarly, we've got on the right there, we actually got a heat map that we generated based on hotpot ratings that were collected in Austin over the course of the week. And that also indicates the places that are most popular. This bright sort of patch here is 6th Street, which if you've ever been to Austin is kind of the heart of the downtown nightlife area. Okay, now, let's take this ballpark example, just because it's such an extreme case. If I am stood outside the ballpark let's take the ballpark here in San Francisco, AT&T Park. If I'm stood outside the ballpark at about, 10 o'clock in the morning, am I more likely to check in there or the coffee shop next door? Well, probably the coffee shop. But if I'm checking in the vicinity of the ballpark right at the beginning of a big game, it's far more likely that that's actually where I want to check in. So we should use those signals. We should use those signals not just to measure popularity, but to then influence the ranking of the search results we give you. So we're also enabling you to do that. If you indicate to us the places where your users are checking in, we will give you app-specific personalized re-ranking of your search results in real time based on the activity that you're seeing. Now, I want to stress that the Places API, like all of our Maps API web services, is developer authenticated. So we have no knowledge of the end user here. Nor do we ask for it. This is app-specific ranking based on anonymous check-in signals that you provide us for this purpose. OK, so that's an overview. And I want to just give you a brief recap. And if there are 2 slides that I want you to take away with you from this whole talk, it's this one and the next one. So 4 key services: search, reporting, check-ins, and autocomplete. You'll see there 100,000 requests per day, completely free to the search service. You can filter by name. You can filter by types, but you can also filter by name in the search service, but it doesn't have the autocomplete functionality. That's separate and designed deliberately to be more lightweight. Real-time check-in-based re-ranking, and delete places instantly, and also get the benefit of all those places that are being generated that get positively moderated. Second slide, key benefits. So what do we feel are the strengths of this API? Well, effectively, the strengths of this API are the strengths of Google. It's comprehensive. We have detailed, good coverage. It's accurate, it's curated, it's moderated. It's clean. You won't see lots of park benches and my mate's house. And I was at South by Southwest in Austin a couple of months ago, and I was stood in a queue that ran 5 blocks from a party that was sort of the opening night kickoff. And as I was stood there was a guy who was using a location-based check-in app, stood about 10 meters in front of me, who was in the process of adding a place for the queue for the party. I turned to the person I was with and said, "This is my data quality problem right there." So it's clean, it's also fast. We sort of take that for granted at Google, that everything has to be fast. The Maps APIs are known for their reliability, and crucially, it's global. This is a heat map of place locations that we've served up. And you can see, when the day inevitably comes that you want to expand your application outside these borders, we are ready and waiting. And there's one more thing. We have this web-based Maps API. You may have heard of it. And we wouldn't want to leave it out in the cold. So we're also launching today a set of classes in the Maps API to bring the same services into the Maps API. In fact, these services, the Place Search service and the Autocomplete service, were the very services I used to build the demos that I showed a moment ago. So all these features will be also available to web-based applications. Right, and that's the overview from me. Now I'd like to invite a good friend of ours up to the stage. I'll let you introduce yourself. This is Seth, and he's going to talk a little bit about how Scavenger, his company, has benefited from their use of the Places API.
Cool, cool. Thank you. And hit number 3. All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Seth Prebach. I'm the chief ninja of Scavenger, and I'm on my last slide already, so I have to go backwards. Hold on a sec. Voila. So I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes quickly about sort of a real-world use case. We integrated with the Google Places API about 5 or 6 months ago and have had a phenomenal experience with it. And so I'm up here to sort of sing the praises of it and very realistically tell you about how we took Scavenger from being something very, very small. We actually launched at Google I/O here last year to something very, very big, in large part on the back of the Google Places API, letting them do a lot of heavy lifting for us. And it's been an awesome experience. So first, very quick background. Some of you may have heard of Scavenger. A lot of you probably haven't. So 30 seconds on what is Scavenger. Scavenger is a location-based game. And it's a very simple game. You go places, you do these things called challenges, quick, fun things to do at places, and you can unlock rewards. So you can go to a place, you can check in, you can snap a photo, you can leave a comment. You can also create your own challenges, and anyone can build these challenges. So sort of our goal is to create what we call a game layer on top of the world where everyone is both building and playing this game at the same time. And some quick history. Like I mentioned, we actually launched this product last year at Google I/O. With 0 users. You sort of always have to start with 0. 6 months later, we had 500,000 users. 3 months after that, we had 1 million users. And somewhere in that period, at around the 5 or 6 month mark, we switched to the Google Places API, in large part to get better data and to be able to handle a lot of the load that we were coming under to make Scavenger perform fast and seamlessly for our growing user base. The Google Places API is also incredibly reliable, and one of the things I want to talk about is that you can use it to build a great consumer experience. We're nearing 1.5 million users, and growth is accelerating like mad, but you can also build a really big business, a meaningful enterprise business on top of that. We've got over 3,000 enterprises building on Scavenger, from Coca-Cola to the Smithsonian to Sony to GameStop, all the way to the US Navy. And all of that is relying on a core Places database, which is provided through the Places API and through Google Places. And it is reliable, and it's something that you can get a really big business and large enterprises building off of and supporting. One of the recent examples of load that we came under and sort of a beautiful use case of being able to get the right data from the Google Places API was a campaign we ran with Buffalo Wild Wings, where over 6 weeks at their 700 locations, 180,000 unique people played Scavenger, checked in, did something like 1.2 million challenges, unlocked rewards, and we didn't have to add a single place to the database. There were 0 user places added for that entire campaign. They were all already there from the Google Places API. Huge campaign, very successful, and something that we we're able to kind of provide turnkey, just adding our unique secret sauce, the Scavenger game mechanics, and building off of the infrastructure from Google Places. So, enough background on Scavenger. The interesting thing that we want to talk about is what Google Places let us do, and where I really want to take this is from sort of the core of what Scavenger is, which is our mission. Our mission was to build the game layer on top of the world, and to do that, we needed a couple prerequisites, right? We needed game mechanics, cool. We could figure that out on our own. We needed a game platform. We needed players and builders, and we needed to be able to connect them to places. We needed to be able to connect them to the world. And so we went on this big quest for the world. And that's the quest that eventually led us to Google Places and to the Places API. And if you're looking to connect people to the world, and of course here, by the world, I mean something a little bit more specific than just everything that's around us. I mean having the knowledge to connect people to the places that matter. You have a couple options. We thought about building it ourselves. We thought about asking our users to create these places for us, to crowdsource them, to scrape it from the web, to do whatever we could to try and get a good place database. We looked at Simple Geo, and we spent a lot of time working with those guys, and they actually have some really interesting things that we're working on. That they're working on. We ended up working initially with Geo API. When we launched, we did not launch with the Google Places API and later did a transition to that. Geo API later became part of Twitter. It has now been shut down, and we actually, we did the transition several months before they deprecated the API, but one of the interesting parts of doing this transition is we're sort of in the unique position to do some real comparison between two relatively full-featured places databases, and I'll give some data on what that looked like afterwards. And then there's also the Facebook Places API, which if you guys are interested in location-based services, you've probably spent some time looking at. And the reason why we ended up transitioning to the Google Places API over the Facebook Places API is that aside from quality of data and some other reasons I'll go through in a second, one of the big restrictions on the Facebook Places API is that to make any request, it is all user authenticated. And as Thor was mentioning earlier, Google Places is developer authenticated, so you can have an app, and you can get the places, and you can bring them into your app and do whatever you want and protect user privacy and enable your users to have a clean and safe experience. With the Facebook Places API, all queries have to be authenticated by the user, and that was something that we just weren't able to implement. And so we made the decision about 5 or 6 months ago to transition to the Google Places API for sort of these 5 big reasons. One is breadth of data. There's a huge amount of data on the Google Places API. It's all over the States. It's all over the world. Places that you want your users to be able to use your app, it's there. There's a tremendous amount of depth of data. Most of our activity happens in big cities, so we don't just want lots of data everywhere. We want the right data. We want to be able to dig in deep. We found that with the Places API. Quality of data is phenomenal. If you've got the place, you also want to be able to get the phone number. You want to be able to get the URL. You want to have the right address. You want to be able to link to places that might have reviews. All of that comes standard with the Places API and has been really valuable for us. Speed and reliability is super key. We've got a lot of people hitting our service all the time. The Google Places API returns quickly. It returns reliably. We haven't had a single issue, and we work with lots of APIs which are some are more reliable than others, and so we're very happy with both the speed and the reliability and consistency of all of that. And also the roadmap that Thor and his team are taking this thing down. They've started adding great categorization, some of the things they talked about today, just really interesting features which make our jobs as location-based app developers much, much easier, enable us to focus on what we're good at, the unique component that we provide. In our case, game mechanics. In your case, might be enabling you to help find your friends at bars, but focus on what you're good at and outsource a lot of the hard work to the Places API. And so the future improvements are a key part of it. And the last slide I want to sort of go through is some of the results we saw for this. After we did the transition, we had a 41% decrease in frustrated location queries. And this concept of a frustrated location query is one that we developed to try and figure out how to judge how our users are interacting with the places we've got. When you load up Scavenger, it's going to show you places around you. And if you find the place that you want, you're going to click on it immediately. If you don't, you're going to have to either load more or do a search or do something to try and find that place. And we define that as a frustrated user, someone who opened up the app and did not get what they want immediately. And the number of people who opened up the app and did get what they want immediately increased hugely, and the number of people who had to actually do those searches dropped by 41%. And this is kind of an abstract term to keep track of a frustrated query, but it's really important if you're building a location-based service that when they open your app, that the place they want, that the place they're at is there immediately, and dropping that frustration by 41% was huge for us. Second is that the places added per 1,000 queries dropped by almost threefold. This is how we keep track of the quality of our database. Over 1,000 queries, 1,000 people opening up their phone and saying, hey, show me the places around me. How many of them have to actually add a place? And it dropped from 60 to 22 after we transitioned to the Places API. Again, a huge increase in just basically quality of interaction for our consumers. There was a 62% drop in reports of incorrect place info. This place is here, but the address is wrong, the phone is wrong, the website is wrong, something about this place is wrong. It's just a much higher quality data set and something that we've been able to now help in improving through some of the things that Thor mentioned as well. And of course, international expansion comes standard. We're only US focused at the moment, but when we're ready to go international, and when you guys are building apps and are ready to go international, obviously the Google Places API has huge support for that. And that's one of the things that we found in other location databases. It's just hard to come by. So a really, really great asset. And the final one, which has just been wonderful for us in working with lots and lots of different APIs, it's been up all the time. It's been fast. It's been reliable. We haven't had any issues. And if you're building a key part of your infrastructure, and if you're building a location-based app, locations are as key as it gets. Having it be up all the time is really, really critical. So that's sort of my quick use case story on the Google Places API, and I'll pass it back to Thor now. But thank you for your time, and have fun building with the API.
Thank you, Seth. Okay. So that's all well and good. How do you get started? So we have a bunch of documentation that's been posted. You can go to our code.google.com, obviously, is where Google keeps all its API documentation, and the Places API is no exception. There's separate documentation for the Places features I mentioned that are also coming to the JavaScript API. If you're not a big fan of long URLs, I'm sure your search engine of choice can help. If you want to sign up to use the Places API, you'll need to get a Google APIs console key. Now, if you've used any of the existing Maps API web services, this will be new to you. The Google APIs console was a service that launched a couple of months ago that is a sort of a dashboard for API use, all the manner of APIs that Google offers. It's a really nice, tidy way to look at, to manage your use of the service, to manage your keys, to check your usage and so forth. And then I encourage you to go to our follow-up session. As you can tell, this was more of a broad overview of the service, and I'm sure many of you want to get stuck into the nitty-gritty details. So the tech lead, the lead engineer for the Places API, will be presenting a session tomorrow at 3 p.m. It's entitled Location-Based App Development Using Google APIs, and it's essentially just going right into the thick of using the Places API. Okay, so you'll start to see these as you go through I/O sessions. We have a feedback page set up for every session. We'd love to get your thoughts on how you feel, whether you feel this was useful. We also have hashtags for each of the tracks at I/O this year, so feel free to use those. And with that, we'll start with Q&A. And Seth, do you want to join us?
Semi-disconnecting myself.
Yes.
So we do a lot with location-based, and what we're noticing is that the young kids, they're constantly really excited about sharing their location, and I'm seeing like the younger generation, they're not worried about privacy as much, and they're really out there like me. I want people to know where I am at all times so they can always get in contact with me. And I'm wondering, do you see like the younger generations coming up, they're not worried about privacy, they're really out there, they really want to have the connectivity and just really engaging?
Do you want to?
Sure. So I think that what we're starting to see is that across all ages and all demographics and everything, people do want to be connected to places. People spend a lot of time at places. There are places that they love, and every different group has important places they want to be connected to. Some people love museums, some people like bars, some people want to hang out at malls. And so we're seeing a general trend that more and more people want to use these types of services. And I would agree with you in sort of a broad overview that the younger generations are more bold about sharing information into a digital world. But even then, you still want to be careful to protect privacy. And I think that in many ways, some of the things we talked about earlier about being able to proxy that through a developer key and then give users control over, hey, I do want to share this data, and I know who I'm sharing it with. And people will get more and more comfortable with that as they get more and more educated, but still a valid concern for lots of people out there.
I also think it's beholden on us who work in this industry and who are aware of the consequences of privacy leaks or and the sort of the longevity of information online to protect people not only from concerns now, but concerns they may have later. So their feelings about privacy may change over time. So it's important that we sort of optimize for the worst case, if you like.
Love the talk.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more in detail about the moderation process and how places will eventually get selected into it or not?
Yeah. Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. So Jem Fitzpatrick, who's a VP at Google on local.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, the moderation process. So we put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that the places that we surface are actually legitimate businesses or places in the real world, right? And so we have a variety of means that we use to do that verification. everything from sort of using using humans to actually sort of verify that places exist to sort of corroborating sort of other data from across the web, and basically looking at all the signals that we can to try to essentially verify that both the existence of a place is in fact real, and that the data that we have about it is correct.
Is there any SLA in terms of like, if you add a place in and it is valid that within 30 days you'd probably see it come in, or a week, or?
We don't currently have an official SLA. We're obviously looking to make that turnaround as fast as possible, but there's not an official SLA at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, so places or location-based services work great when I'm in my home country. But when I'm traveling, the data charges are exorbitant, like $20 a megabyte. And I can't really use the places in these apps when I'm traveling. And many people do that for vacations and business. So we're trying to solve the problem with an app. And the only way we had to have the top places made available offline that they can synchronize and take it with them for cities. And the only way we had so far was to build it ourselves, pretty much like what you had on your list on the top. So how can this new API help us automate some of that and take some of the subset of like a most popular places offline with me for specific cities that I'm traveling to?
So the API as it's currently designed is certainly very focused on finding places near a user at that moment in time. We don't really have a model for saying, can I pre-cache all the places information in a certain area? And there are some sort of licensing complexities around doing that. We do allow sort of a limited amount of caching for performance reasons, and you can refresh cache data, but it needs to be data that was originally requested relating to a real user query rather than sort of an offline operation. So in truth, I would say it's not a use case that we are able to cater to right now. Okay. But this is the kind of feedback that that's very valuable. So one thing I should have mentioned is we do have an issue tracker where you can go and report any concerns you have with the API, but also request features.
But in the meantime, caching that locally in our own database and building our own app, that may not be allowed by licensing, and so the only option is to build our own popular places database for taking it with you.
Brian sat up there. Did you have something to say?
The answer is basically yes.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Hi. One of the problems I run across as a user is when I go to check into a place and there's a bunch of user-created events, like for when I have movies in the park, you'll go and you might see a movies in the park. You might see this park name. Is there any plans in the future to separate events from places, or allow you to check into an event at a place, or without creating 10 different things like today when I checked into Google I/O, but it's also the Moscone Center, and how do you deal with events at a location?
So the short answer is yes. We thought about this at great length, actually. I mean, one of the benefits of the developer preview we've had, and also looking at a lot of the popular sort of location-based apps out there, is we can get a very clear sense of the way people are likely to use these types of apps and how that will impact the service. And clearly, events, are a big part of that. One of the things we toyed with was, well, is an event just a type of place? Is it just a type of place that has an expiry date on it? And we decided ultimately that no, it's not. An event is actually a property of a place. And consequently, we needed, in order to do this right, we needed sort of an extra layer of features on top of the existing Places API where you can attach events to places, you can check into events, and so forth. So that's something that we actively plan to do, but it's not something that we were able to get done right now in time.
Thank you.
So Thor, you started your presentation speaking about the granularity of search return results, talking about Moscone Theatre in San Francisco. Taking that example further, we're here in room 8. If I was to do a search on room 8, it needs to be in the context that I'm here at this event. But further to that, the return result would be in this area on Google Maps. But is there any plans to take that further to perhaps step inside the building and demonstrate where we are or where we should go for roommate within this conference.
Do you mean from a mapping perspective or from a check-in perspective?
So from the mapping perspective, to visually demonstrate to the user, or should we build custom layers when that occurs, or what's the best practice for that?
We don't currently have plans along those lines, but it's a great idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for releasing the Places API for us all to use. It's really great, and I'm really excited to see the focus on autocomplete. For web users, sometimes the easiest way to bias a search result for autocomplete is to use their IP address. Is that going to be an option that we can use to bias autocompletes and location searches?
Right now, the service doesn't automatically support that. I'm trying to think whether there is. I know that we previously had a. I think Google Gears had a IP-based geolocation service, but I'm not sure whether we still have that. No, I'm being told by more learned minds than my own that we do not. I think, in truth, that that is the right abstraction. I'm not sure I would want to put that specifically into this API. I think it's more useful to be able to say, for a given IP, have the location, and then you can use that in many different places. That's something that we can look into.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a natural features category? I'm thinking of a use in a botanical garden or arboretum.
Yes, there is. Yeah, I would, in the interest of full disclosure, I would say that it's mostly large-scale features right now. Sort of national parks and volcanoes and things like that. But the nature of the category scheme is that you can add places, and you can any place that you add, you can tag with one of our existing categories, and you can certainly.
And how would moderation fit in that category?
I doubt we've had to face that until now. So I'm not sure, in all honesty. But yeah, I'll be interested to see.
Hi, thanks for doing this. It was informative. Simple question, support for GAPE.
For
Google Apps for the enterprise.
So this is integration into App Engine, or?
No, integrated with signing in from your enterprise account as opposed to
I see. Okay,
Gmail.
So the authentication scheme we use is tied into the Google API's console. So essentially, the way the Google API's console works, if you're not familiar with it, is that when you log in for the first time, you can create projects, and each project has a key associated with it, and any given project can have multiple owners. So you can associate multiple Google accounts with a given project so that projects don't get orphaned if one person's not available. I'm not actually sure what the Google Apps account integration into Google API's console is, but it's something I'll be happy to look into.
Well, I think I'm pretty sure you can't check in from an enterprise account today. So sorry, you mean using Latitude, let's say.
Right.
So where's that on the roadmap for people that primarily use Google from an enterprise perspective?
It's worth me stressing, actually, that the check-in service as part of the Places API is just this anonymous re-ranking model. It's totally unrelated to the check-in feature that's now part of Latitude and Google Maps.
Oh, it's completely separate, okay.
Yeah. So, but I know that there has been interest expressed in enterprise features for Latitude. It's not something that I am fully aware of, but I know there's interest in it. So, if it would help, I can probably connect you with the right people to ask.
Okay.
Related to the earlier point that 20% of the places in the database change every year, is there any thought been put to making the API queryable from a historical perspective? So where you would provide a date as a parameter and sort of get what was around at that time?
As far as I know, it's not something we've looked at.
Yeah, but I like the idea. So I would say log it as a feature request. It's certainly interesting.
Okay, I've seen the Suprema version of the API. what are the advantages of this Premier version, and are there any limitations to the free version?
So the Google Maps API in general, the overall family of products, has a Premier version, which is an enterprise version. And Maps API Premier has a number of advantages, including broader licensing rights, for example, use on the intranet or in for-fee applications. Also, higher quotas on geocoding directions and elevation. Right now, however, the Google Places API is, although we're now making it available to everybody, it's still considered to be in Google Code Labs, which is sort of the initial stage that an API goes through where it's still being developed and evolving, and we need some flexibility just to adapt to feedback. As a general rule, Labs APIs are not included in Premier because enterprise customers have much stronger backward compatibility expectations on an API. So what we anticipate happening is that the Places API will graduate from Labs in the not too distant future once we're comfortable that it fits everybody's needs, and then it will be integrated into Maps API Premier. And until we get to that point, I couldn't say what the specific benefits will be. I would imagine that at a minimum, the same licensing, technical support, service level agreements, and so forth would be the most likely possibility, rather than necessarily specific feature differentiation.
But no limitation on the usage so far?
So currently, the API allows you to perform up to 100,000 queries per day for free.
Thinking from a perspective of emergency response and or marketing, if you can plot a polygon or put a point with a radius and get a summary report about how many people are connected, how many bars do you have, how many hospitals, but instead of having them brought in as points with that long individuals to summarize the reports. Is it possible currently if, let's say, we bring it into the Fusion tables and then summarize them there and spit them out?
So just so I understand, this was getting an assessment of the number of businesses of a given type in a given area?
Yeah.
Okay.
So either you trace a polygon or you put a point and you put a buffer around that point, and you want summaries, not just a bunch of points. You want summaries, how many bars, how many hospitals, right, for emergency response or for marketing purposes.
Sort of density, essentially.
Yeah.
So no, that's not something that we have right now. But again, it's something that it sounds like we could consider. So if you just do a search for Maps API issue tracker, you'll see there's actually a link there for logging Places API feature requests specifically, and we're keen to collect those. Also, I should mention that you can star feature requests to indicate that you're interested in them. And then that ends up ranking them for us in terms of popularity, which is something that we take very seriously. So I recommend everybody, in fact, even if you don't have an idea in mind, keep a regular eye on that and just flag the things that you find interesting, and that will help us prioritize. Okay, looks like that's all the questions we have. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and enjoy the rest of your I/O.